Have you ever heard of Minhwa? Minhwa refers to Korean folk painting or Korean folk art back from the Joseon era. They were paintings closely connected to daily life, created and enjoyed by the common people, and embodied happiness, hope, prosperity, and well-being. Today, we are joined by a Minhwa artist from the US who fell in love with this traditional Korean painting style. He has lived in Korea for 15 years and is now in his 4th year of studying Minhwa. Let's welcome Professor James Johnston from Dongshin University. Hello, welcome Professor Johnston.
Hello, Professor.
Hello, 안녕하세요. 저는 제임스 존스턴입니다. 저는 민화 작가이고 작가명은 혜빈입니다.
All right, and for our international viewers, so your name is
James Johnston,
but you've got an artist name.
Yes, my pen name is Hye-bin.
Hye-bin. Okay. All right. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Why your artist name is Hye-bin?
Actually, my wife and my mother-in-law helped pick it out. They looked in the fortune-telling book and picked the most lucky name, or the luckiest name for me.
Oh, wonderful. All right, so Professor Johnston, first and foremost, what brought you to Korea? You've been here for more than 10 years, 15 years, I guess.
Well, I finished my Peace Corps service in Turkmenistan, and some of my colleagues came to Korea, and so I wanted to just continue my adventures, so I followed them here. And first I lived in Ulsan, then Busan, and that's where I met my wife. And after that, we got married and moved to Naju, and I've been here since.
Wow, wonderful places.
Yeah.
Yes, usually people go straight to Seoul, but you decided to go to the other places in Korea, which is great. But you are a literature professor from Texas. Now, literature is also an art, but what was the decisive turning point that led you to become fascinated with traditional Korean art?
There wasn't really a decisive moment. I've always loved Korean art, but there was, if I had to pick something, it would be a visit my wife and I had to the Gangjin Minhwa Museum. And the curator was just super friendly, and she talked in Korean very, very slowly for me so I could understand. And she just explained everything. I had a million questions, and it was just kind of an eye-opening experience for me. Yeah.
So I guess that first experience was a great one for you and a memorable one for you. So Professor Johnston, then compared to Western painting, what do you see as the biggest difference or maybe aesthetic difference in Korean traditional painting?
There's a lot of things. I would say just in terms of the art, you know, like I like how Korean art puts more emphasis on the paper and the brushes. You know, I mean, in Western art, of course, you can have your expensive canvases, your expensive brushes, but in Korean art, it's much more important. Like, you know, I kind of think of it like how a Taekwondo athlete will use their body. They know every movement on how to be powerful and fight. And it's the same with a brush. You know, the Korean artists have planned out over the centuries, you know, how best to hold the brush, and if you hold it this way, what does it mean? If you do a fast stroke, what does it mean? And so I really admire that. And there's so many papers, and I love the smell of the papers and stuff like that. And yeah. So.
I like that comparison to Taekwondo, which is also a martial art. But now let's talk a little bit about some of the details. We'd like to know what you understand by the concept of 여백의미, which would translate into English as the beauty of empty space. So yeah, from a foreigner's perspective, what do you think about that concept?
So I thought about that question a lot, and I think as a let me back up. As a millennial who grew up with computers, I think the use of white space or empty spaces is important. You know, like, so my generation grew up looking at, you know, screens and content that valued the importance of white space. So maybe because of that, or because of just my own personality, I admire art that especially uses empty spaces to convey meaning. For example, in Western art, one of my favorite painters is Caravaggio, and he uses big empty spaces to put emphasis on the main characters. but he uses black, not white. But just thinking about Korean art or like a sumukwa, you know, how do I say this? You know, they use white space to make the texture of the trees. So just kind of a stuttered, slow, dry brushstroke will leave little patterns that looks like a pine bark. And I think that's just really amazing how they've thought of that and planned it all out and stuff like that. So.
Just a quick off-topic question, Professor. Were you always interested in art in the first place, or was it like something that you really grew to love when you came to Korea?
I've always loved art, but I would say that with my teachers' and wife's encouragement, I've been encouraged to focus on it more closely and become, I guess, a professional artist. So yeah.
And could you introduce a Minhwa piece of yours that really holds a special place to you?
Well, I made a portrait of my mother-in-law and my father-in-law, and I think, and it was really touching for me. It's not, how do I say? My father-in-law passed away a few years ago, so it was quite sad. And I wanted to make something memorable for my mother-in-law. And she hangs it in her room, and it makes me feel quite touched about that. I also have a portrait of my nephew and his wife, which I gave at their wedding ceremony and stuff like that.
So that really shows that it's more than a piece of art. A painting can also be really a way to preserve memories and also have those moments to remember for a long time. And now, Professor Johnston, you also often choose regional subjects such as Naju Gomtang, which is beef bone soup from Naju, or Yeongam figs. So why are you drawn to such local themes?
So the Naju Gomtang painting that I made, I didn't pick it intentionally to draw a local subject, but I live in Naju and I often go to Naju Gomtang, the Haiyan chip, and just, you know, I walk in the restaurant and there's steam and there's noise and the ajumas are stirring the big pot of meat, and it's just a very chaotic and fun scene. And in my painting, I just wanted to capture that moment. For my fig painting, there is in Mokpo, there's a K Art gallery run by John Dae-sang, and he encouraged me to make a painting of fig trees. And I thought, oh, that's a good idea. And so with my wife, we went to all these little farms to take photos of the fig trees. I didn't really know what they looked like before. And so I practiced and I practiced, and I made a oil painting of fig trees, and it turned out okay, I guess.
Okay.
Now, this is a very philosophical question. You once said, rather than becoming a great person, you want to keep improving. But what does improvement mean to you?
So, you know, everybody, in my opinion, everybody has these feelings of looking at something they did before or something they made before and like, oh, they're like, oh, I did that, I'm embarrassed or something like that. And I want to, when I look at my paintings from the past, I'm like, oh, I made that, like, oh, it looks so bad. But my goal is to just improve for myself. And I want to be able to look back at my paintings and be proud of what I made. And I hope other people like it. I hope other people can enjoy it. But the purpose is for me to improve. So, yeah.
And we are seeing the video here with your paintings. Was that from an exhibition that you held before?
I've had several exhibitions. The last exhibition I did was at the Gwangju International Art Fair, I think, and that was an amazing opportunity. My art teacher, Paek Eun-young, she helped me get join with a small gallery that had a little exhibition, and it's at the Gwangju Expo. And it was a huge experience, lots of amazing artists, and I felt very humbled and very, very, very grateful to participate. I forget the artist, but like, for example, there was one artist who sold a lot of artwork to Brad Pitt. And I was like, wow, my little tiny artworks are here in the same room as this amazing artist over here. So it was just, to my teacher, many, many thanks for the opportunity, and yeah.
It would be great if you could invite us to your next exhibition if you do get to hold one. And Professor Johnston, is there any Korean painting style or content that you would challenge yourself like in the near future?
Well, I want to keep improving in Minhwa. I'm quite the amateur. And I would also like to learn more about Korean poetry, because a lot of the artwork has poetry in it. I must improve my Korean skills. Yeah, and writing the calligraphy is quite difficult as well. So I'd like to learn that. Yeah.
And just very briefly, for our international viewers, it's not very difficult to approach Minhwa, right? For instance, we've got in K-pop Demon Hunters, the recent animated film, we had the magpie and the tiger in there, and those are also elements that are seen in Minhwa painting. So what would you say to viewers here who are watching the program and want to know more of Minhwa? How can they approach it?
Definitely. Well, just in terms of the art, it has such a beautiful aesthetic, such a feeling. And I've seen lots of, I guess, commercial coloring books where they can practice the Minhwa themselves. Yeah, I think with all of it, it has so much meaning behind everything. And so I think in addition to kind of experiencing the coloring books and stuff like that, read about what the magpie and the tiger mean, or what the fish jumping out of the water means and stuff like that. So it's so beautiful, and I really do love Minhwa. So
I think that's going to spark more of that interest in Korean traditional painting. And thank you very much, Professor Johnston, for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Walter. As always, we're going to have you back here later this week.
Yes, see you later.